Thank you. Hello, everyone. So today we're going to talk about some healthy eating tips for the holidays. This can also pertain to anytime there's a lot of like gatherings in your life. Sometimes, you might have like birthday parties, things like that. But basically, just how to prevent yourself from overeating in those types of situations and how to get the healthiest foods into your body and prevent weight gain. So we all know that weight gain around the holidays is all too common. There's been numerous studies about people gaining weight in the holidays. But, you know, there's so much food, there's so many things like cookies, especially during the winter season. You have like your gingerbread cookies and all the cakes and all these just like delicious things that aren't quite so healthy. And then there's also the gathering. So there's lots of meals shared with family and friends typically. It's really kind of, there's no wonder why we end up gaining weight during this time of the year. But today we're going to go over some tips and some tricks to avoid this weight gain. The first one is to avoid skipping meals. So a lot of times people, if you're going to go to a get-together, if you know you're going to be having dinner with a few people, there's going to be lots of good food. You just won't eat all day and you're like saving your appetite for later. But what the studies have found is that if you do this, you tend to overeat later on in the day. So instead, it's important to make sure that you continue to eat your regular meals during the day. You actually want to have a snack before you arrive. That way, it kind of takes like the edge off of your appetite and prevent you from overeating as soon as you get there. Good options for snacks to have during the day would include things like healthy proteins and healthy fats, such as a hard-boiled egg, an apple with peanut butter, or some nuts. The reason why healthy fats and proteins are important are because they actually help keep you feeling full for a longer duration than carbohydrates will. Whereas when you just have carbohydrates, you tend to feel hungrier later on. If you are going grocery shopping, make sure that you eat before you go, especially this time of year when there's all those, displays of cookies, or like you have like the cinnamon, like the Cinnabons baking and you smell that, or like the caramel corn, like all the stuff that's out there that's like these holiday treats. If you're hungry and you go grocery shopping, you're going to end up purchasing them out of impulse. So make sure you eat before you go grocery shopping. And also, don't eat less the day of the get-together, kind of like what I talked about earlier. If you don't eat throughout the whole day, you're going to be starving by the time you get to wherever you're going, and you're going to want to eat everything. So eat your regular small meals. That's really important. Contribute a healthy dish. So if you're going somewhere and you're going to be cooking, then contribute a healthy option. That way, no matter what happens, you're going to have something to eat. So if you're meeting with friends or family, bring a recipe that uses healthy ingredients, such as things like whole grains. Really good options are like brown rice, quinoa. You can do oats, or wheat berries are also good. Excuse me. Healthy fats, things like nuts. Nuts can be added to any appetizers, any dish, and they give you some extra omega-3 fats, which is really great. And also fish is a really good alternative to red meat that contains good omega-3 healthy fats. Vegetables, of course, we always want to eat our vegetables, but the more color that you can have at your meal is going to mean that there's more phytonutrients. So there's going to be more vitamins, more really good nutrients in there that are good for your health, good to prevent disease. Plus, there's fiber in vegetables, and the more fiber you eat, the more filled up you're going to feel. And that'll help you to prevent you from overeating all the other things that might not be as nutritious. Fruit is another really good option to bring to a party. Fruit at a dessert table is awesome. You can, make some homemade whipped cream or something else to pair with it, or maybe like a low sugar chocolate sauce. But that's going to be a lot less in calories and higher in nutrients, vitamins, and fiber compared to something like a cake or a fruit flavored donut or like fruit filled jelly donut, something like that. As for the protein, always aiming for the lean, healthy proteins like fish and poultry compared to red meat. If you are a red meat fan, there is nothing super wrong with that. I would just encourage you to purchase the organic grass-fed red meat because that actually has better quality fats in it that make it a lot healthier compared to a conventionally raised cow. If you're making a dessert, avoid using a lot of added sugar or other processed ingredients. Unsweetened applesauce and mashed ripe bananas can be used instead of butter and sugar, and it gives like a sweet and it's more natural flavor. So those are just some options if you're going to be cooking during the holiday season. Choosing your splurges is important. So just because there's a big table of food does not mean that you need to eat everything on it. Be choosy, spend your calories on the foods that you love. If you're at a buffet, a good idea is to walk around the entire table before you put anything on your plate. This helps you kind of look at all of your options, really be able to make room on your plate for the things that matter most to you, rather than, walking and being like, oh, that looks good, putting a little bit on, walking a little bit farther down, going, oh, that also looks good. And next thing you know, your plate is piled high with food. So really taking a lap before you put anything on your plate can help you to limit how much food you're taking and avoid piling items on top of one another. Another good tip is to start with your vegetables. So this will help to take the edge off of your appetite, and fruit and vegetables make great snacks and side dishes. You just want to make sure that you're avoiding the options that are smothered in those like really heavy sauces because that's a lot of extra calories. But fruit and vegetables for the most part, if you can have half of your plate be fruit and vegetable or vegetable, that's a good marker to go by. Place the focus on people and not on food. I love this one because with everything that's gone on this year with COVID and everything else, we have been so isolated. Whether it's physically isolated, mentally isolated, it's very difficult during this time. And if you are following the guidelines, if you're going to be doing more of like a Zoom gathering, that's awesome for this season because it takes the focus off of the food and puts it on to the people. So really, we're getting together. Food is huge. I have an Italian family, so food is a huge component to any of our gatherings, but so is just being around the people that you love and the people that care about you. So if you are going somewhere, this could be, avoid standing next to the food table. That way, if you're talking and you're standing there, you're more likely to grab food as you talk and kind of mindlessly eat. Whereas if you're away from the food table, you can actually just enjoy those conversations that you're having in that time spent with loved ones rather than mindlessly eating while you're doing it. If you are going to be connecting in person or virtually, find activities that don't involve food. This could be things like playing a board game, going outside, taking a walk. Being outdoors this season is going to be great because we really want to have that like social distancing. So outside walks are a really good way to meet up with friends and family while staying active and also staying distanced. There's things like Pictionary, trivia, charades, all of those can be played both in person and over Zoom. So that's really fun. That's something that you guys can do with your friends and your family. That way you're able to connect and that doesn't involve food. Savor the seasonal treats. So have a plate of the foods that you like best and then move away from the table. We kind of talked about this when we were talking about the buffet table, but really, pick and choose the foods that you love. If you don't like eggnog, don't drink eggnog. It's extremely high in calories, even though it might be like a holiday tradition. If you don't like it, why waste those calories there? Try to be picky at your holiday dinner. Focus on eating the foods that you absolutely love and skip the ones that you're less excited about. So this is important. There are so many traditions out there for, I think pretty much every household has some type of tradition that revolves around food, especially around the holiday times. So if you're not, if you don't like the food, if you're not super into it, but you just feel like you eat it because, it's tradition, you can excuse yourself from that, and that's okay. If there's a ton of foods that you really like, try having really small portions of each. Think like a bite or two of each to avoid overeating, but still letting yourself enjoy all of the flavors. Choosing your drinks wisely. This is a hard one. So water is obviously the healthiest and lowest calorie option that we have to drink, no matter what situation you're in. If you're looking for something a little bit more festive and water just doesn't do it for you, you can try doing like a seltzer water and adding some things like cranberries or pomegranate seeds or mint leaves, things like that. You can get creative to spice it up a little bit. We want to avoid or limit alcohol as much as possible when we're trying to lose weight or not gain weight. And the reason for this is because alcohol contributes significant calories and they don't get burned as energy. So when you consume food, your body can take those calories and kind of process it and use it as energy if there's like carbs and fat and protein and things like that. With alcohol, it just gets stored as fat. So it's really important that, there's a lot of misconceptions of like, oh, I'll just burn it off, or I'll just, get active and get moving, which is great. But with alcohol, it's a much more difficult process that takes a lot longer of a time than food does in order to be burned off. Alcohol also increases your appetite and diminishes your ability to control your food choices. So inhibitions are down. You might be looking at that second or third piece of cake and you just go for it. So making sure that if you are going to drink, try to alternate it with water. That's a good way to still be able to enjoy the alcohol while also making sure you stay hydrated, prevent you from overdoing your limit, preventing you from overeating, and limiting how many calories you're getting from alcohol. This also goes, I put in here alcohol or other sugary drinks, because this also goes for things like juice and like the eggnog, things like that, that can be really high calorie, really high sugar. You want to make sure that you're drinking plenty of water with those. If you choose to drink alcohol, remember that your mixers are also high in calories. So seltzer is going to be better than something like Coca-Cola. Those options that are like the spiced eggnog or the spiced hot chocolate, those can be very, very high in calories. So your lower calorie options are going to be things like a vodka soda, would be probably the lowest calorie option there is. So just keeping that in mind as well. Eat mindfully. This is really important, and I do want to talk a little bit about mindful eating because there is a whole like science and everything about mindful eating, and there's a ton of different tips and tricks to mindful eating that I have not gone into here because that's a whole another lecture on its own. But really, if this is something that interests you, I highly encourage people to look into mindful eating on their own. There is a great like meditation almost for how to introduce yourself to mindful eating. You can find it on YouTube. There's one on my website that I go through with people, but really we are so stuck in this culture of just eating and eating and eating until our stomach is so full. Rarely do we take the time to actually enjoy our food and taste what we're eating. So think about the last meal you had. Can you tell me like the textures, the temperature, the flavor, all of the things that have gone in that meal? Probably not. You probably kind of just ate it, wasn't really thinking, you were going through your routine. But an important part of mindful eating is getting back in tune with, am I enjoying this? Like, what am I getting out of this food besides just the nutrients to survive? Because probably 90% of us could skip a few meals and still survive. Whereas, you know, actually enjoying and tasting that food is something that we don't do as often. It takes your brain a few minutes to register that your stomach's full, usually about 20 minutes. So if you take 10 to 20 minutes between your servings, this can help you register, do you really need that second serving? Sometimes this can be hard. I have noticed that I've had a lot of people tell me, you know, I've tried to take 20 minutes or so in between my first plate and my second plate, but by that time people are cleaning up. So, you know, your plate kind of gets taken away from you, or the food's getting cold and, you know, now like we're past seconds for dinner, we're on to dessert or something else. So that I understand that that can make it difficult, but the best that you can do, even if it's just taking, eating your plate, putting food on that plate, and then putting it to the side so that the rest of the food can get cleaned up. You have a second plate there if you want it. But if you don't need it after 20 minutes, if you realize that you actually are full, you can always just wrap that up and have it for the next day. So you already have a plate made, but you don't have to eat it. A good thing to do is to make conversation. So if you're at a table with a few people, some family members, try to ask people about their days, get some good conversation flowing. That way it kind of takes the pressure off you guys sitting there being like, okay, well, has the 20 minutes been up yet? Are we ready for seconds? Kind of make it a little bit more natural. Another thing you can do is drink water. Drinking like a full glass of water can help to fill up your stomach a little bit more too. So when you drink that water, if you realize that you're actually full after, you're not going to be eating those extra calories. Savor each bite. So this is a good mindful eating trick, is to put your fork down between each bite and to try to chew your food at least 10 times. And 10 is conservative. People who are super into mindful eating will say chew it 20, 30, 40, 50 times before you swallow. I find that very difficult. It almost like slides down your throat by that time you've gotten that many chews because it's so masticated. But really trying to savor each bite. Think about what you're tasting, like really enjoy the flavors that are in your mouth, the textures, all of that, and focus on like the joy of eating rather than just mindlessly eating. Research shows that we tend to fill up our plates. There was a study about, it was a soup bowl. They used two different soup bowls. One had a little like hole in the bottom that kept feeding soup into it, so no matter how much you ate, it didn't go down. And another one was just like filled with regular soup, regular bowl, people ate it, and that was it. When they were given the one bowl of soup and ate it, they ate less calories, whereas when they had the refilling soup bowl, people just kept eating and eating and eating and eating and eating until they were way over full, because they had that cue of their bowl was still full, so they need to keep eating. So similar thing, if you have a huge plate and you fill it up, you're going to eat way more than if you have a smaller plate and you fill it up. So try using those smaller plates as much as possible. That way you don't fit as much on it, but you're less likely to like overeat because you don't have so many options, so much quantity. Throughout your meal, ask yourself, like, am I still enjoying this? So especially for those people who have like a ton of foods that they typically eat on the holidays that are their favorite foods, they don't want to give any of them up. Take a few bites and say, okay, am I still enjoying this? There has been a lot of studies done that talk about the 3-bite rule. After 3 bites, we typically stop getting the like endorphins that are produced from eating a food that we love, and that kind of like boost of, ooh, this is really great, that feel good boost. After 3 bites, that goes away. So think about that, keep that in the back of your mind. When you eat these 3 bites, okay, am I still really enjoying this? If you are, then go ahead and, you know, take a few more bites. But if not, move on to something else, either whether you want to stop eating or you want to move on to a different food group. That way you're not just shoveling food in without being conscious of if you're enjoying it or not, or if you're actually hungry or not. If you're known to mindless eat and you just know it's an issue that you've struggled with, a good tip is to chew on gum or eat a mint. So if you're in a situation where, you know, there's food everywhere, whether it's hors d'oeuvres being passed around or just a lot of buffet tables, try chewing on gum or eating a mint. That way you're less likely to reach for those snacks. Maybe after dinner, you try to chew on some gum or eat a mint. That way it keeps you from taking seconds, gives your mind a little bit more time to process that you're actually full. I recommend this for anyone who really just struggles with like binging or feeling like they don't have a sense of control when they're around lots of food options. Getting moving is another good thing to do to help burn off some of those calories. Dancing is a really great way to get your body moving and to get those calories burning. I love to dance. Even if you're just doing it in your pajamas alone, get moving, put on some good music. You can do it with friends and with family. It tends to be really fun. It also helps with your mood and get some endorphins flowing as well. So dancing is a really great option. You can also do like being active, make that part of your holiday tradition. So we hear about like the turkey trot a lot for like Thanksgiving, but having, you know, like a Santa walk or whatever your family wants to celebrate and wants to call it. But maybe it's taking a walk before eating or after eating. Even giving gifts that encourage others to engage in healthy activities. So things like a new pair of running sneakers or like the Fitbit watches or some exercise bands, whatever it is, things like that to encourage your loved ones to get their bodies moving. You can even do, you know, like an after evening yoga or something like that. Something simple that everyone can participate in. If there's little kids, yoga is a really great option. I've had a lot of success with little kids doing yoga and they seem to just love it. There's so many videos on YouTube, things that if you have like a smart TV or can connect your computer to your TV, you know, you can put up these classes that you follow along with, and some of them are like 10 minutes long. 10-15 minutes is really all you need to kind of get that blood flowing and really just get away from the food and more into like traditions and being healthy and having these healthy habits. Another good one is to resist falling into a food coma. If you feel like you've eaten too much, the worst thing you can do is lay down and take a nap. When that happens, we kind of, any of the fat was in the meal that we ate kind of just sits in our arteries, and it's much better to stay standing, move around, walk. Even if you just, you know, go up and down your stairs a few times, just try to get moving if you feel like you've already overeaten or eaten too much. Sledding and ice skating are also really lovely holiday activities that the whole fam can enjoy. If you live in like a colder area that has snow, we might be getting snow here this week, we'll see. But snow shoveling is an amazing exercise, and that's a good way to be active during the holiday season. So if you have the ability to, like, physically, if you do get snow, rather than calling a company to plow or snow blow or whatever it is, get out there with your shovel and make that one of your workouts for the day. Say no to food pushers politely. This is a very difficult thing to do, especially, you know, we all have that grandma that just wants to feed you endlessly. But don't let others pressure you into eating foods that you don't want to eat. Being open about your health goals can really help those pushy family members understand why you're choosing not to eat certain foods. So instead of saying like, no, no, thank you, no, thank you, no, thank you, sometimes it helps to say, look, family, I am really trying to stick to my weight loss, or I'm really trying not to gain weight, or I'm really trying to be healthy for my blood pressure, for my cholesterol, whatever it is, whatever your health goals are, you know, let people know if you're comfortable with that, and just saying, if I choose not to eat a certain food, it's not because I don't want to eat your cooking or because I don't like it. It's just because I really value my health. And I hope that as people who, you know, love and care about you, they would also value your health as well, and would be understanding of that. Sometimes saying I don't eat that can be a little bit more powerful than no thanks. For some reason, there's a study done on this, but saying I don't eat that, people are like, oh, okay, you don't eat that. It's not like a, oh, no, thank you, I'm not going to eat it right now. It's kind of just like, I don't eat that, so please don't offer it again. Similar to like if you're a vegetarian and you don't eat meat, you know, people aren't going to push a meatball onto you when you say, I don't eat that, I'm a vegetarian. So whatever your reasoning is, but you can always say, I don't eat that. If you're too full for dessert, you can also stall. You can, you know, be open, say I'm too full right now, but I'll have some later. And hopefully, you know, those people that are pushing the food onto you will forget about later, or maybe they'll package some up for you that you can either take home and enjoy at a later time, or, you know, if you take it home and you throw it out, there's no shame in that either. Remember that you have the right to control your health, so be assertive in your choices and don't hesitate to remind people that you're trying to stick with your health goals. A lot of times we can be persuaded really easily, especially by people that we care about very much. So just trying to, you know, stick to your goals and stand up for yourself in that sense is a really awesome form of self-care that you can practice. So don't be ashamed of that. And last but not least, lose the guilt. Holiday eating can make people really anxious, and it's important that we avoid getting too worked up. So there are a lot of different types of like eating disorders and disordered eating, but there's one called orthorexia, and that is when you are so paranoid about eating healthy that it actually turns into an eating disorder, in the sense where like you're so worked up about only eating the healthiest foods, you know, all this stuff, it turns into not so healthy. And it's important that, you know, if you slip up, if you have food that you said you were not going to eat, that's okay. It's one, maybe a few days out of the year that you have to that you ended up having that. The holidays are a time of celebration as well as relaxation, and everything else that has happened throughout 2020, like it is totally okay to enjoy yourself this year. If you do happen to eat more than you planned, don't beat yourself up about it. And really important, don't let a slip become a fall. So if you go overboard one day, get back on track the next day. If you think about, you know, however long you've been doing whether, I don't like to use the term diet so much, but your healthy eating patterns, however long you've been trying to follow those, one day of overeating is not going to override a week's, a year's, a month's, however long you have been keeping up with your healthy eating. One day is not going to ruin all of that. It's not going to throw all of that out the window. So just keep that in mind. It's okay to have a couple of days or a day of, you know, off track eating, but just make sure that you get back on board and don't let a slip become a fall. And get back to your healthy eating habits as soon as you possibly can. So that's pretty much it for my healthy holiday eating tips. If anyone has any questions, just let me know. You can post in the chat and I will look it up real quick. But like I said before, if you're really into mindful eating, because that is a really good way to be conscious of how you eat, what you eat, when you eat, all those things, there is a meditation on my website, which is rootwellnessco.com, that you can watch and kind of understand what mindful eating is a little bit better.